let's get to this, huh? Let's go ahead and change my cam. And we'll do, boop. We'll do this. And I want to talk about this. This is important to me. This is very, very important to me. Mulligans. Mulligans have been a really important part of universes for as long as I can remember. One of the greats of the game have talked about proper mulliganing and not being greedy. And so today what I want to do with the change of our mulligan system and new people coming into the game, I want to share with you my 5+ years of what I do and what I think about whenever I mulligan for the game. And so I'm going to talk about what I think are the best ways to mulligan. Once again, all these TAM talks are just, just that, my opinion. If you don't necessarily agree with me, hey, that's totally chill. I would love to get your ideas and your opinions in the comments down below. So with that, let's get to it. So what is a mulligan? First and foremost, a mulligan is you fixing your bad luck. This game originally, back when it was UFS or Universes, was based off of a fighting game, right? And so with that fighting game, in fighting games, right, it's all based around skill. It's about reads. There's not a lot of RNG, random number generator. There's not a lot of luck that happens inside of fighting games. It's about your grind. It's about your skill. It's about your execution. But we, as card game players, do not have that luxury. We play a card game that has luck, that has skill, that has a lot of things. But one of the big things is luck. And so what a mulligan does is it helps you one time kind of fix your luck by taking your opening starting hand that has got a lot of cool combo pieces, but are not necessarily helpful right now, and then lets you put them back in your deck and then gets to redraw. What up, Curious Souls? And so the Universe's mulligan has had a lot of changes. Originally, back whenever we played, the way that we mulliganed was, and this is going to sound crazy, both players would draw their hand, and if they didn't like their hand, they got one free mulligan. And you took every card in your hand, and you removed it from the game. So if I drew, as a 6-hander, 4 attacks and 2 foundations, and I didn't think that was good enough to play the game, I just lost 4 attacks for the rest of forever. They were gone. My 4 favorite ultra rares, boop, they all accidentally found themselves in my hand because of how my deck shuffled. Well, I guess I just don't get to play with Dark Shadow Ruin this game as Tokoyami. Or you have to hold the hand and deal with it. And so then they took and they changed the mulligan to where both players now get to take their card and put every card on the bottom of their deck, and then we both get to redraw if we wished. And then with the introduction of my hero, the way that the mulligan worked was that both players got to selectively mulligan. So you get to draw your cards, and you can take any of these cards and put them back and then redraw, whether you're going first or going second. And this lasted for about, a month, 2 months? And then with the 2022 tournament season on its way, Jasco has decided to change their mulligan once again to make the game better and more positive, and they have made it a split mulligan. And so the first player gets to now have what is called a partial mulligan. Is this my next slide? Yeah, here's why the change. So the reason that we have this change of first player gets to take their entire hand and put it on the bottom of their deck, redraw, and they get to do that an additional time if they choose. Put it on the bottom of the deck and then redraw. And then once they have successfully picked their hand, they then shuffle their entire deck. It is not possible to physically draw. The cards that you put on the bottom of your deck. You can draw duplicates of the cards if you have them in your deck, but you cannot draw physically the same card. Make that very, very clear. You do not put as player 1, you do not put your hand in your deck, shuffle, and then redraw. Put them on the bottom, draw, bottom, draw. And then player 2 gets that partial mulligan still, right? Where they get to look at their hand and they get to selectively pick their pieces and put it on the bottom and then redraw. And at the beginning of their turn, they get to draw an additional card after their review step, which I could go over an entire video all about the review step. Why the change? So back whenever we originally played Universes and we banished our hands, it felt really bad because the only time we ever wanted to banish our hands was whenever we had like more than half of our cards be non-attacks. So assets, actions, attacks. And if they were attacks, right? Like I'm a 6-hander and I literally draw 5 attacks. That's me losing a fifth of the a fifth of the attacks in my deck. That means that it's gonna be way harder for me to kill you. So I got punished for some bad RNG, and that just does not feel good. So they changed it to the on the bottom. And then whenever we changed it to the partial mulligans, what was happening is player 1 was too consistent. Think about it this way. Whenever you are playing in our card game, because we are not single draw card games, we draw up to our full printed hand size. All the way up to, there were some characters back in old formats that were 8 hand size characters, right? So by turn 2, you get to see the top 16 cards of your deck, not to mention discarding the top X cards of your deck for how many cards that you played. It was a little too consistent to have player 1 be able to build out 6 foundations and then draw 6 fresh cards. If we were a draw 1 card game, the mulligans would not be nearly as asymmetrical as they are. But because of the fact that player 1 gets to see X times 2 their hand size, and player 2 does not. Player 1 gets X times 2, player 2 gets X plus 1. It's very lopsided. It's really, really easy if you have a really solid build 1 to just take the momentum of the game and keep it for the entire spot. To the point where I want to say that the numbers that I was hearing were like 70% win rate for player 1, which is extraordinary. If we go all the way back to the most balanced game that there is, chess, white only has like a 53% win rate over black, which is still a bunch. Like, don't get it twisted. If you would love to have a 50% win rate over the second player, but 80% is like nigh unplayable and not fun. It's very, very not fun. So this change is important. So I want to talk about when should player 1 mulligan, because a lot of times as I am commentating and I'm watching people play, I'm watching them mulligan back hands, especially when I'm commentating, and I'm watching them mulligan back hands that are actually good. I'm watching them mulligan hands that are great. And the first reason that you should ever mulligan your hand is if you have less than half of your hands is foundations. So you draw your hand, and I'm a 6-hander, right? And I have 2 foundations and 4 attacks. You cannot play the game. We don't want to play the game on a 2 foundation hand. That stinks. So put that hand back and redraw. If half of your hand is foundations, you should keep that hand. 99% of the time, you should keep that hand. That is the number one thing. I see a lot of people get so greedy where they draw their hand and they say 3 foundations and they put it back and then redraw. And then they draw 2 foundations and they put it back and they redraw and they draw 2 foundations. Don't be greedy. Don't be greedy. If you see a hand of guaranteed playables up to 3, then you should do that. And that brings me to my next point of the next reason that you should mulligan as player 1 is you see too many 2s. Right? I know that I'm playing 2 checks in my deck because 2 checks are very powerful, and I draw 6 2 diffs, and my character starts committed because I'm going first. I think it's okay to mulligan away that hand if you are afraid of checking a 2 on turn 1. If you are so scared of, I build 1 foundation, I build my first foundation's on a 2, my second foundation's on a 2, I check a 2 check, that was on a 3, it fails. So my card leaves my card pool, and I only get to build out my 1 foundation. If you don't have any spam, if you don't have any less than 2 difficulty foundations in your hand, yeah, you could totally mulligan it away. But if you mulligan and then find that equal to at least half your hand size, and it's normally half your hand size rounded down. So as 7-handers, you want at least three foundations. If you do want to be greedy and you want to push it up to 4, you can. Don't ever that's slightly greedy. Don't be mega greedy and push for 5 as a 7-hander. As a 5-hander, I think you have to build 3. So I think you mulligan your hand until you find 3 playable foundations. And then lastly, we've got low impact cards. You draw your hand, it's 6 foundations. You got plenty of spam, but you look and you go, I don't have a key card for my game plan. a great example would be something like Coordinated Effort at time of recording, right? Coordinated Effort is a great card, and it impacts your game so much so that it just pushes your win percentage astronomically. But even as like disruptive pieces, right? My opponent is playing some like Shigaraki, right? I could totally be like, if I mulligan for, even as turn 1, if I mulligan for something like Precise Control, I know that I can auto block the scariest move that he has, Decaying Grip, right? That says it can only be blocked by mids, with only be blocked by 3 or higher. It's a mid, and you can lift it straight from your staging area, or from your stage. And so you can mulligan for this high impact card inside of the matchup, right? Things like, I'm playing against a Staff Strike deck. I really want to see Fulfilled My Duty. So I will mulligan this pretty okay hand away and try and find this impactful card to fight the matchup. But that is the last reason to mulligan a thing out. Normally, my low impact cards are if I have a hand if I've got a 5 foundation hand that has plenty of spams in it, 1s and 2s, I'll keep the hand even if the cards are very low impact, even if the cards don't actually do anything in the matchup, because what's important is later on in the game, I need to be able to have the option to play out as many cards as I want, as many cards as I need. And if I decide to only build 2 on turn 1, I've now locked myself out of that option inside of the game. It is important to build so many foundations, and we can talk about this later when it comes to the review step. You play more copies of other cards in your deck, so it is okay just to let them go. It is okay to be like, yo, I am greedy and I want to see these specific cards. You'll find out eventually we draw 5, 6, 7 cards every turn. Not to mention all the extra draw power that exists in our game. So like, you will find these cards, these high impact cards. But if you absolutely need it, I'm down a game and I gotta make an impact as player 1. It is totally okay for that to be a reason to do it. When should player 2 mulligan? First off, you always throw back all of your attack cards. Every single one of them. There is a 99.99999% reason to throw back all attack cards. And the answer is, and I just said it, literally, you'll find them again. You will find them one more time. There is no reason to hold these. Even as player 1, or excuse me, as player 2, you are not going to be the person who gets to attack first. That is not the way that it works. 9 times out of 10, whenever I'm playing the card game, if I'm going second, my opponent builds, and then I build, and then my opponent builds again, I should build. I should build one more time. You do not get to be the aggro in the matchup, and you should play player 1 versus player 2 very differently. When you win the die roll, your mindset should be different from when you lose the die roll. That is how it is. The only asterisk that I have here is if you have a cool on-board trick with your attack cards, things like Naval Laser Blast, Naval Laser Beam, Naval Laser Blast, having Breaker 2. If you've got Breaker on your attack cards and you're like, yo, I think my opponent is going to attack me on turn 2, on their turn 2, hold a 2 mid block with Breaker 2. That sounds great, and that is a way for you to take back the initiative of being able to attack. Once again, too many 2 checks. We talked about it in player 1. It's the same issue. You have to make sure that you're building out 3, maybe 4 foundations. Low impact cards. Once again, I need to see these cards mainly for defense and disruption, as opposed to aggro and flow cards for player 1. Like player 1, low impact cards should be more aggro flow cards, and these should be more defense disruption cards. And then lastly, block coverage. Look at your opponent's deck. This should be either you understand from the things that they have checked what block zones that you want to have, as well as what block zones that they play, if it's like game 2, game 3, or what attack zones they play, and so you can hold block zones appropriately. And that is what brings me to like the biggest thing about this new Mulligan system of player 2 getting this extra card. This extra card is not necessarily for you to build more. What it is for me to, as a 6-hander, build 4 foundations and then have 3 options to block with. As soon as you limit that option down to the 2, it actually significantly makes my opponent stronger. Like the difference between 2 and 3 cards in hand, when my opponent is only on 4 foundations and they're trying to play attack strings, they might be greedy and play that 3rd attack if you only have 2 cards in hand because you've blocked with both, right? But if you have that 3rd one, man, this thing could get blocked. Maybe it's not worth me committing out my entire board to maybe push in an extra 6 damage or so. And so just giving the option and the appearance and posturing the fact that, yo, I've got 4 foundations out. I've got 3 cards in my hand. Sometimes I've got 4 foundations out, and I got 4 cards in my hand as a 7-hander. I don't feel like I am in absolute danger. I have the choice to block a bunch of things because I have built correctly. I have built my deck correctly. I have mulligan correctly. I have reviewed correctly. I have done everything correctly. So on turn 2, I should not be OTK'd. 1 turn killed. And that is the point of the player 2 mulligan, is you have to make sure that you have good block coverage options. And then I believe this, my next slide is my last slide, and so I really want to talk about it. Don't be greedy. Don't be greedy. I see so many times. In fact, it happened to me yesterday because of how badly I wanted one of these high-impact cards. I wanted to pass in the torch as Midoriya so bad that I threw back a 4 foundation hand with other high-impact cards, and then drew into a 2 foundation hand, and then mulliganed that away, and then drew into a 2 foundation hand. Rough. Really, really rough. And it sucked, and it lost me that match. Guaranteed. I lost game 1, and then I decided I was determined to have this high-impact card in my hand because I got greedy. Don't be greedy. And that's the best advice that I can give you. Go through this PowerPoint presentation one more time, slide by slide, and understand the fact that as player 1 inside of the My Hero card game for the first 2 months, we have been absolutely omega super powered. We have been so powered up with the privilege of always expecting to have 6 foundations in our opening hand. And this game has been played for about a decade, as the backs of your cards have said, universes. And if you get a 3 foundation hand, keep it. It's very good. It's very good, and you will feel the power because of the privilege of getting to go first. And that's what I got. If you have any ideas or suggestions or comments or concerns about mulligans, please let me know down in the comments down below. If you want to join the conversation live, I'm going to do a small Q&A right after the video with Twitch chat. If they have any questions about my ideas on mulligans, please go over to twitch.tv/TamCardwell. You can come follow me out here. I do one of these Tam Talks about once a week. I got to figure out what next week's is. So with that, thank you much for watching, you guys, and I wish you well. So chat.